Hey, and welcome back to the next episode of the Right Hand Drive Guys podcast, the podcast for guys who like right hand drives. I'm Bobby. This is Aaron.
Yo.
And we are back again. Episode 113.
Yeah, dude, that's a good number, right?
It is a good number. And so we were talking, we're like, you know, of course we've had a lot of guests. Loved it. It's been great. RJ last week was sweet. Definitely mind-blowing.
Yeah, absolutely.
But we were like, all right, let's get back to a few knowledge episodes. And, you know, these episodes don't mean we have all the knowledge.
No, not at all.
No, it just simply means that we are putting knowledge out there, which we have generally sourced from credible sources.
Yeah.
So, you know, what do we want to do the knowledge about? Like, where have we not touched on? You know, it's kind of like one of those things. We start getting a little Nissan heavy.
Yeah.
And we're, you know, obviously currently two Nissan guys, even though I love Honda, but it's easy to do because we can bounce off each other. So we're like, we need to get back to like a Honda episode. We did the VTEC episode.
Yeah.
And that was cool. That worked out good. It got good feedback. So we're like, all right, well, like, if not VTEC, then what? Well, like, let's get back to where it all started. The B series.
The B series,
The
dude.
B series,
Absolutely.
dude. And, you know, I guarantee plenty of guys listening to this that were born before 1995, for sure, have had a B series. Their buddy had a B series.
Yeah.
Something, right?
Yeah.
You know, even an LS VTEC, anything, right?
One way or another, dude. You've probably been around a B series.
Right.
Whether you even knew it or not.
And so, whether you even knew it or not.
You know?
And so it's kind of like one of those things like, okay, you know, we recognize that this motor kind of created a whole like change in the way Honda was going.
Yeah.
And then, of course, added all of the tunability and, you know, all of the aftermarket upgrades. It really started something that changed the culture, so to speak. The B series is pretty prominent.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. I mean, it was the bigger of the two like popular motors back then, like comparable to the D series. The D series was like Honda's single cam.
Yep.
You know, they had VTEC and non, obviously, and the B series was like that, but with two cams, dude. The DOHC.
Yeah. The
dual-
dock.
Yeah, the dock.
Yeah. Everybody's
Can't
heard somebody
forget it,
say
dude.
that. And usually it's the DSM guys that say that for
Yeah.
some reason. When they're talking about the early 4G63s, they'll talk about the dock.
Is that a dock or not?
Yeah. But yeah, right. No, you're right. The D series was the economy
Yeah.
version, right? And of course they put VTEC in some of it to make you feel a little sporty in those lower models, but the B series was for sure like the shining star.
Yeah, and I think it actually, well, the good B series all started with the Acura Integra, right? Like the B18, that's what came in the DA Integras.
The B16A, right, came in the DA Integra.
Yeah.
And then the B18.
Well, that was only on the XSIs, I believe, right?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely right. And then, so what you're saying is the B18 came in, right, yes.
In the States, at least.
Yeah, the DA, RS, and LS
Right.
came with a B18 A1.
Right.
But that's non-VTEC, so that's why I wouldn't know nothing about it.
Ah, I gotcha.
You know, I definitely, like, I've had, you know, B18s, B16s, right? And even a B20 at one point, which I'll get into later. But I had like a single overhead, like a single cam slam, you know, like the turbo D series, you know. So, but the non-VTEC B series, I never necessarily got into,
right.
You know, because I just wasn't that deep to where I was trying to use this block with this head and, you know, make this sweet motor out of a dog, you know. So, but yeah, you're right. They did pretty much both debut in Integras.
Right, which was, I mean, in the States, Acura was like the higher line, I guess you could say. So that would come with the dual cam B series, whereas the Honda equivalents, you know, the Civics and all that would come with the D, which
Yeah, I mean, the lower ends always came with that. And so to that point, pretty much the first VTEC engine, it was the first VTEC. It's the first generation B16A. These were what really set everything off, right? You know, starting to come in the EF8s and EF9s, you know, the Civic and CRX.
Yeah.
That really started to change things, you know, because now we have that top end power and like, you know, an actual true power band as opposed to the non VTEC and single cam.
And they were coming in cars that were more for sport, not just economy driving.
Right.
As well. Like the CRX, like that was kind of a ripper back in the day.
Oh,
Same with the
sure.
EF SIR. Like those are definitely some rippers.
Yeah, and I mean to come in these little platforms and all of a sudden have this VTEC dual overhead cam. Yeah, no, I'm sure these guys were like, oh, wow, we better pick these up. But, I mean, at 158 horsepower, nothing crazy, right? Especially by today's standards, that's like a super small car. Like, that's like
I think Kia's come with more than that.
Yeah, so especially with technology. So the thing about this, though, is it had an 8,200 RPM rev limiter.
Yeah.
But VTEC kicks in at 5,500.
Nice.
So, you know, you're getting close to 3,000 RPM if you're tacking it all the way out of VTEC.
Yeah.
And so imagine the guy, the first time he hits VTEC back in 1989. He's like, what the hell's going on?
Just starts making a bunch of noise.
Yeah.
Goes a little faster.
And of course, you know, like most of the B16s, they either came with an S1, J1, or YS1, which is the LSD transmission. Yeah. So they all mostly shared that. And then, of course, there's the second generation B16A, which they made little improvements on, but for the most part, the same, you know. And then, of course, they come out with the B16B. And so that was kind of like the next step, right? Yeah. Especially with the B series. The B16B was like the first true performance B series.
Yeah, what'd that come in? The
Civic Type R.
Right, starting with the EKs?
EK, yeah. So, and that's like the first B series I had was a B16B. And, you know, a little different, right? Like, kind of the same, a little different. You know, the original coming with 158, this now puts down 185.
Yeah, decent.
So, I mean, for the same displacement, they figured out how to squeeze almost 30 more horsepower out of it. I mean, that's pretty decent. And so, but with this car, you're at a 9,000 RPM rev limiter.
Yeah.
Like, you're starting to get into those high numbers. And your VTEC is engaging at 6,100.
Nice.
So like a later VTEC engagement, but a longer span. So, and these came with a helical LSD, which, you know, a little more power, a little better LSD makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, and of course, multiple variations of the B16. It's kind of crazy when you look at it. I think there's 12. But then they come out, you know, but then they also come out with a B17.
Yeah, that was always the odd one.
Yeah, for sure. You hardly heard of it.
Yeah, that came in the DA Integra GSRs in the States. And yeah, it was weird. It's like, I don't know. It's just like that middle child, I guess, never got the attention. It like was kind of rare. I don't think there was that many of those. Comparatively.
Yeah, and because you really never saw them, and they were only made for 2 years.
Right.
Like, which is crazy to think that they had this engine. They developed this engine. They use it for 2 years, and then that's it. And so this thing would have the VTEC engaging at 5,750, only had 160 horsepower. Like, really nothing crazy. Yeah. You know what I mean? And
were those specific to the U.S. market? Like, Japan didn't get those, did they?
Correct.
Yeah, which is kind of weird, too.
Well, they're like, dude, keep that 1.7 liter thing over there. We do even numbers over here, dude.
Yeah, exactly.
So like you mentioned earlier, though, when coming up into the B18, the B18A is, you know, that Accord, or no, sorry, you didn't say this one, but the original B18A came in 86 to 89 Accords, but these had no VTEC.
Right.
They were super basic. It was more like a B20.
Right.
Which was the CRV motors. And people still tried to do stuff with the B20s, which I'll get into, and get the 2.0 with the, and it really never popped off. They'd always just blow up. So yeah, I mean, again, with the B18s, there's plenty of non-VTECs, right? I mean, there's always that scale of base to performance, and so sorting through them all is a bit of a challenge because, for example, the B18 B1, right?
Yeah.
This one was the dual overhead cam non-VTEC, right?
In the US, yeah.
Yeah, so those came in the 94 to 01 Integras, and this is what they would do the LS VTEC with.
Yeah.
They would use the bottom end of this, and then a top end of a B16 or so?
No.
They'd use the Type R head
for the LS VTEC.
Yeah,
right. They would use that bottom end, and they would use either head.
Yeah,
either the GSR head or the Type R B16, just depending on how your budget was, because Type R was a little bit more, if I remember back in the day.
Yeah, which makes sense. And so, people would do what they could to get VTEC, even on like blocks or motors that didn't even come with sense.
It. But I mean, it sounds like a cool thing because all you have to do is swap the head, and then you got to get an ECU and change a little bit of the wiring. Then you got to run an oil line for the VTEC solenoid, and it was just kind of a
like a janky kind of thing.
Right. It was always a backyard type thing. So I feel like that's why they kind of got a bad rap, and they were always blowing up because it was kind of the ghetto way to go about things, and people weren't building nice LS VTECs, I feel. I mean, there was obviously a few. Yeah, I'm sure they're out there, but for the most part, it was people Frankensteining and throwing stuff together and kind of half-assing it, and then wonder why it didn't last. Or
for sure. Back in the day, that was a big thing, and I'm sure people still do some little things like this, but the amount of motors out there is diminished.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
It's just not quite as easy to be messing around with these type of things.
Yeah, I mean, I remember going to the junkyards and just seeing B series everywhere, just regular LS. Dude, even a few GSRs back in the day. Come across one of those at a pull apart. Yeah. It's not going to last long, dude. They'll have the homies over there yanking it out, putting it in a wheelbarrow, dude, and it's gone.
So when we're talking about B18, of course, the infamous B18C, the Integra Type R motor, is like, that pinnacle, right? Yeah. That's the one you really wanted, and that's what you were trying to replicate with an LS VTEC or anything else, right?
Right.
So these things were in 95 to 2000 DC2 and DB8 Integra Types R in Japan, Integra Type R's in Japan, with a 200 horsepower, 197, whatever, rating. They really bumped it up, especially over that B16. And so this thing will redline out at 8,900, which a little less than the B16, but definitely.
It's expected with a bigger stroke.
Yeah, but still, that's plenty high.
Yeah.
And it doesn't tell me, I'm not sure when that VTEC engages, but I'd assume around 6,000 like the other, something like that. Yeah, I mean, and then, of course, there was the straight-up JDM B18C, which that's what a lot of guys could get.
Yeah.
Right? It was like the, Type R's little brother, so to speak. In, a little less of a red line, a little different VTEC engagement, 4,400 RPM on that one.
Yeah.
So, it's probably still fun and definitely worth grabbing, right?
Yeah.
But not quite the level of the B18C in the Type R.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, those are of course, there's there's a bunch more B18s,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Usually the USDM ones we got a few different versions of, but
Yeah.
the JDMs is pretty much just the B18C. In the USDMs, we had B18C1, 2, 3, 5 was the USDM Type R.
Yeah, 𝐇𝐀𝐒𝐇𝐓 was C6. Yeah, I mean, in pretty similar, right? You know, these B18s, just little small variances, whether it was due to emissions or whatever the country of import, you know, required. You know, the C7 was the New Zealand Type R.
I never even heard of that one.
I know. It's just interesting. And then, you know, to round out the B series, there's the B20B and B20B4. And so these are the CRV, Orthia, step wagons, you know, all that type of thing. It's a non-VTEC 2.0 liter, you know, coming with 140 horsepower, like nothing major, you know, redlining out at 6,500. So
yeah,
it's a low compression engine.
Right.
It doesn't even have a knock sensor. Like it's just, it's that base, right?
Right.
But guys would still try to take those blocks and do,
because it was a 2-liter. Technically, it has more bore and stroke. So
right.
Yeah, same thing with the LSV techs, dude. They would take the B20 bottom ends out of the CRVs or, you know, whatever they could find in the junkyard, throw a VTEC head on it, because it's the same thing, same process as a LSV tech pretty much. And, yeah, a lot of them would blow up.
Yeah, of course, because, you know, whether they didn't have the compression right, whatever it may be, they were just doing the basic. Most guys.
Right.
There were some guys that were like a next level that were actually figuring this stuff out. But those were the guys convincing these other dudes it could be done.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then they don't understand the process.
But I mean, I even remember back in the day, the B20 swap was just kind of like that budget, not necessarily downgrade, not necessarily an upgrade, but like if your Integra blew its engine, couldn't find a B18, you just throw a B20 in it, everything else would bolt up, everything would be good, and you'd run it.
Yeah, I mean,
but whenever you start trying to swap heads and do that kind of thing, that's when they got a little weird.
Yeah, I mean, I get it though. You're trying to make do with what you have.
Yeah.
You know, and so the thing about the B series is that it's legendary because they consider it for what it is, bulletproof.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't know if anybody's ever seen the video. I hope you have, of the D series running on water and then nothing.
Yeah.
You know, they tried to kill this D series for a solid hour and just could not.
I remember at one point they had the garden hose in the valve cover, dude.
Just filling the thing. And it's still just running. Yeah. So, you know, Hondas are definitely, 90s, early 2000s Hondas are known for that, right? They'll run and these are no different. You know, they come, of course, with the aluminum block, and guys are putting 6-7 horsepower in these aluminum blocks and just moving with it. You know, of course built, but like they're doing it. You know, I had a 92. I think maybe I had it when I knew you. A 92.
The turbo one?
Yeah, the SIR to the EG hatch from Japan. And this was back in like 2008 or 9. Yeah. And man, it's crazy, dude. Like we got 480 horsepower out of that thing.
Decent.
On a stock block on a B16.
Yeah.
And like the stock B16 that came in it, you know, strapped a turbo on it, put injectors, you know, did some little things like that, basically bolt-on stuff.
Right.
400, dude, yeah. This thing would dash hop from light to light, dude. Like I had
Torque,
to bolt everything down.
lanes, dude.
Yeah, man. Like I couldn't keep tires on that thing. It was a wild car, and it loved it.
Yeah,
you know,
they took turbo as well.
Yeah,
huh?
on E85, just ripping, dude.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things, you know, beyond the fact that, like, you know, and this doesn't just go for B series, but Honda's period, that movement back then with the tucking the bays and whatnot, the square profile of the B series just looks so good in those bays.
Right.
Like that was like attractive to me. I was like, wow, like this looks.
Take the timing cover off so you can see the timing belt, dude.
Yeah. Jeez, dude. All right, relax. But yeah, and then of course, right, the power that you could get out of them. I never loved the front wheel drive thing.
Yeah,
that was what I felt like was the limiting factor. But I guess they just weren't built for what I was thinking I wanted.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm trying to go in a straight line as fast as I can at that point.
Yeah.
And front wheel drive. I needed some fatties, some big old fatties, but then I would have been snapping axles. So you know, it is a crazy thing. But I have for sure always loved the B series. Another quick story. The thing that got me into Hondas, period, was we've talked about him before on the podcast. His name is Dave Perry. I hope at some point he'll come on to the podcast, but his story is very emotional, and I don't think he's ready to, you know, do that. But long story short, in the middle of his story, he ends up getting this JDM Integra Type R. The thing is sick. It's completely Mugened out. The motor's built by Mugen. It can't, like, they had the Mugen stripes on it. Like every part on this car was Mugen. And this is in 2005.
Yeah.
Like this is right after they stopped making them. You know, like
still a new car.
Still a new car. And this, I don't know if it was a Mugen demo car. I have no clue. But this is my first ride in a right-hand drive car. I had just graduated high school. It was a summer afterwards, whatever.
Yeah.
He brings me. This thing rips 10,000 RPMs and just like is singing, dude. Yeah. And like that's when I was like, dude, Hondas are amazing. This thing doesn't even have a turbo, but in a car like that, VTEC feels like that style power band. So that really, you know, that B18 that he had in that car really changed the course of like the type of car that I liked at that point, because that NA just raw power.
The NAB series, there's nothing like that sound.
Oh, dude.
And in my experience, I've never owned one, but I've driven a few friends, and dude, whenever they're built and they're revving to 10K, and you know you can see the tack wrap all the way around, dude. It's just like. And it just makes the craziest like intake noise, dude, and just it pulls. Yeah. And they pull, and they'd beat a lot of cars in the straight line that you wouldn't really necessarily expect. Yeah. Especially back then. Yeah. You know, when you're just getting into it, you're like, oh, it's just a Honda. It's not gonna can't touch a Mustang probably necessarily, but no,
those
dude.
Jack toys.
Right. No, dude, it's actually probably can pull a Mustang pretty hard.
Yeah. Yeah. You would see that too a lot, especially in like the hatchbacks, the light hatchbacks.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. So it's like, you know, and I'm sure you guys even have like a million stories about these type of things, right? Yeah. The first time you rode in a built B series. And so it's pretty crazy, because let's just fast forward, right? 2024, you still have guys that are B series only. Yeah. You still have die-hard B series fans 30 plus years after the motor debuted. You know, that's like, you don't have whatever came in my 97 Cavalier. You probably don't have that many die-hard that motor guy. You know what I'm saying? Like that 2.0 Chevy junk.
It's kind of like, kind of like the old 350 Chevy that everyone had back in the day. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's kind of like that thing. It's tried and true. Yeah. People love it. A lot of people have moved on to the next thing, you know, which in that case would be LS's. In this case, it'd probably be K series. Yep. But that tried and true is still there, and they're still making parts. Oh, yeah, they're still selling parts.
Yeah, right. No, you're right. There are guys that still want the 350 even today, you know, and there are guys that want the B series. And I'm one of the guys that would want the B series, to be honest. Like I've seen all of these K series swaps. I remember like way back in 2009 when Bond was swapping a K series into that green EG hatch. Yeah. And it was just like, it's cool, right? It's like orientated the opposite way.
Right.
It's like this bigger, different profile motor. Like, yeah, I mean, it's sweet. But for me, like B series is, I'm the 350 guy, all right? I'm the guy, you know? I'm still running the 350 while you're whipping past me with a LS, right?
Hey, it's understandable, you know?
So I figure let's talk about, you're going to have to take the K series
Yeah,
here,
I'll take the K.
and I'm going to take the B series, and we're just going to spit real quick what our setup would be, lightly, what our setup would be, and why our setup is better.
Okay.
Like what? Not necessarily better than each other's, but better than a K series or better than a B series, right? So I'm going to let you go first.
Okay. And what would this be going in? Just like an EK9 or something like that?
Yeah, okay. The car, let's say EK9, hatch. That would be good.
Okay. Yeah, so K series.
No, it's not going in a 4-door Skyline, dude. Chill.
Well, that's a whole other thing, dude. They make rear-wheel drive swap kits for K20s or, K20s, K24s. And I never saw that with B series, which that's just a whole different thing, right?
Yeah.
But K24s, I mean, they've been making them since probably 03, I think was the first year, 02 or 03, when they started coming in the Accords. Yeah. And there's just so many of them out there. And on top of that, they can make very, very good power without even, cracking into the bottom end. Like stock bottom end, they can.
Oh, for sure.
They can hold plenty. You can slap a turbo kit on that thing. As long as you have enough fuel and you're not getting crazy with the tuning, dude, you can run 400 or 500 horsepower all day, depending on the fuel. Mm. So
what would you do on your K series? What's your setup that's going to beat the B series?
Well, I was also going to say you could do crazy NA builds as well. Like they got some crazy head packages I've seen out there that, they make over 300, I believe, NA, which is kind of insane. But I would probably want to do one of those. Do some crazy high compression NA build with some ITBs. And, dude, let it rip. I mean, I'm sure it would sound absolutely insane.
Yeah, I bet it would. It's cool. So we're both going the same way with this. Got it. Got it. This is not rehearsed.
So we're going to do the exact same thing?
Yes, because I'm putting Tota ITBs.
Yeah.
I'm putting, high compression, yes, pistons, crank, you name it. Yeah. We're getting down to the nitty gritty. I'm basically rebuilding this dude's Mugen fucking B series because that thing, I've never felt NA car like that before. Yeah. And granted, I'm 18, all horned up, but, and maybe a lot of it was just the situation. But, I've always loved the sound of an NA B series, just dude, oh my gosh. It's it literally is like music. You hear that thing ripping around the track, and it's just this raw sound that is not like a turbo car at all.
Right. Definitely not like a turbo car.
Right. Which, turbo cars are sweet, but when you can turn 10,000 RPM on a 1.8 or whatever liter motor, you're getting close to motorcycle level.
Yeah.
Right. Realistically, So, I mean, I don't think there's a better one. I think it depends on the application, right?
Yeah, and how much money you want to spend.
For sure.
I think at this day and age, dollar for dollar, you could make more power reliably off a K series, just because just to buy the engine itself, you're spending way less. Whereas a B16 swap nowadays,
tons.
It's almost ridiculous. It's like a RB26 prices.
Yeah, they're getting close. Yeah,
yeah, it's freaking crazy.
Yeah,
it's
supply
crazy
and demand, man. It is wild just how much they disappeared. We didn't even realize it was happening while it was happening.
I know.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm probably guilty for one of them getting scrapped, So, I mean, that is tough, but I agree 100%. Today, 2024, if you don't got the money and you're not trying to be nostalgic,
yeah,
of course. Even if you splurge for a K20, like, I mean, a 2.0 NA is going to stomp a 1.8 unless you got some magic tricks.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to have to be friggin' throwing oil out the back. Whatever. I mean, I guess you probably would be anyways as a B series, but, you know, like, it's the K series is a superior motor overall, and that makes sense. You know, with time, Honda's engineers had to get better.
Right.
You know, not just regulatory-wise, but just to kind of step up what they were doing to stay challenged.
Exactly. But still, at the end of the day, nothing beats that B series in like an EK engine bay. It's nice and clean. You got the red wrinkle valve cover.
Very awesome. Yeah, even factory, they look great.
That's just very hard to beat. So I can see both sides of it too.
100%. So we're all for it. We're loving it. You know, it might K series might start coming in Nissans pretty quick here. So we might be loving them a little more.
Yeah, yo, chill.
But yeah, man, if you guys have anything, like, hit us up in the DMs. Let us know what you're thinking. Give us some feedback, suggestions, anything. Just say what's up. We're down to do it. Of course, you can find us on the socials at rhdguys. But, man, we're loving the B series. Like, K series is the new rage, but B series is a classic, and sometimes you just got to be that guy.
Can't beat it.
Absolutely. For episode 113, I'm Bobby. This is Aaron.
See ya.
Peace.